Hey guys, it's Mecha Mermaid. A few weeks ago, I posted a video about my disability, and I said that I would post another video about my experience in the hospital. I recorded a video that day about the hospital, and after watching it, I realized I left out so much. I really wanted to record another video. So today I'm going to talk to you about my experience in the hospital after the car accident. The first thing I remember is waking up in the hospital and being surrounded by a bunch of people that I know, friends that I was with during the accident, my ex-boyfriend, some people's parents. The first thing I remember is a nurse or a doctor touching points of my legs and my toes and asking me if I feel it. My first thought when I was waking up and just like getting all these questions was just, I don't care. I just want to go back to sleep essentially. I was on so many drugs and I was just like so out of it and I just didn't even care. Like I realized that my body was completely fucked up and I didn't give a shit at the time. He points at my toes and asks me if I can wiggle my toes and I can't wiggle them after they had like touched all my places to see what worked and didn't work. I remember feeling like the most unquenchable thirst in my life. Like I felt like I was gonna die unless I could have water. But they told me I couldn't have any water before surgery. That I could only have like they could give me little sponges, like a sponge to suck on, like 3 or 4 times, but that was all the water I could have. They were like, you have to go for surgery in the morning. It was like 10 p.m. at this point. I don't remember going to sleep that night. I don't remember waking up in the morning. I don't remember going to surgery. I remember waking up from surgery. It was just a big room I was in after surgery. People started visiting me, and I just hear people around me like in a lot of pain and like groaning, and it was really hard for me to listen to what was going on around me. My mom flew down immediately, and my dad drove throughout the night to come meet me, which is a 15-hour drive. I barely remember seeing my dad, who came with my brother. I barely remember seeing them. Apparently, my brother was at my side the entire time. I just don't remember. My mom stayed with me for, I think, a whole month. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and then I got transferred to another hospital, rehab hospital, and I stayed there for a month and a half, and that was last summer. So I was in the hospital the middle of June, and I stayed till September is when I was discharged. So after I was in that room with a bunch of people for a day, I think, I got transferred to the room I was staying in for the rest of the duration in the hospital. It was a shared room with another person who was an older lady that had a stroke, I think, and she was using a power wheelchair. I was having the most intense nightmares of my life. The first night, I remember waking up after having this horrible dream where I was biking down this road to go downtown, I think, and then I see cops everywhere. I hear signs everywhere, and I get off my bike and I feel someone behind me with like a knife in my back, like right where I had surgery. And they're like, "Don't move or I'm gonna kill you." And that's when I woke up, and it was so terrifying for me. I remember the next few nights I kept having like the most horrifying nightmares of my life, where I would be so scared to go to bed at the end of the night that I had to ask the nurses if they could give me like anti-anxiety medication. Or I'd wake up in the middle of the night and they'd give me anti-anxiety medication. Maybe after a week the nightmares stopped. And after the nightmares stopped, I started getting treatment, physiotherapy treatment. So these two physiotherapists would come into my room, and the first day they asked me to sit up. So I tried sitting up, and it felt so hard. I felt so nauseous. Up to that point in the hospital, I'd been throwing up every single day. I couldn't keep down food. I was hooked up to a catheter, and I wasn't able to poo at all. I was throwing up every time I ate a meal. So physiotherapy comes in, and they ask me to sit up, and I sit up, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna throw up. So I throw up, and then they're like, all right, you did good. Like, we'll come back tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, great. So I lay back down, went back to sleep, probably the whole day. The next day they come back and they're like, all right, we're gonna try again. So I sit up and I feel okay. And they're like, all right, you're gonna get into your wheelchair. And I'm like, oh man, this sounds so hard. So they put a transfer board under my butt onto the wheelchair, and someone helps me transfer into my wheelchair. And they're like, you have to practice sitting here for up to 4 hours a day. And so I sit in it for like maybe 1 hour and I get excruciating back pain. So I just go back to bed. We did the same thing like every single day. I would get into my wheelchair, try and stay in it as long as possible. After a few days of doing that, I was like, I love being outdoors, especially in the summer. Like before the accident, I was running all the time, hiking, like going outside, playing sports, stuff like that. And so I was like really craving going outside. Um, my friend came one day and he was like, "Yeah, let's go to the park." And I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds amazing." So we went to the park, and already I feel so much anxiety about being outside, and my back starts hurting so much. So we went to the park after like this big bumpy ride that was only like less than 5 minutes long, and we sit there for like 10 minutes, and I feel like the world is closing in on me. So I'm like, we should go back to the hospital. Sitting in my chair for like maybe 1 hour, and my back was just like killing me. So I just got back into bed. Maybe the next day or the next few days, some of my best friends came over to the hospital and they were like, we're gonna get you high today. We walked to the cemetery, which was right next to the hospital, and we smoked weed, and it was my first time smoking since the accident. Before that, I smoked pretty frequently. Immediately after smoking weed, I could feel the pain in my legs, like the nerve pain that I have all the time in my legs that feels like kind of like burning electricity below my knee throughout the whole part, like including my feet, which I can't feel. I feel that. So immediately after smoking the joint, that just like dissipates, and I'm like, whoa, that's the first effect I notice, is that my legs aren't in pain anymore. And the second effect is that my back is like not killing me right now. So I was like, this is awesome. And as soon as I got back to the hospital, I told the nurse right away. I was like, dude, I just smoked a joint and it made all my pain go away. And she was like, whoa, well, if you gotta do it, like you should do it. And I was like, hell yeah. And I just got really excited, and I'm pretty sure she wrote it down in my file because like a bunch of nurses and shit were like, you smoke weed? Like I saw it in your file. And I'm like, whoops. After 2 weeks in the hospital, I was transferred to the rehab center. The rehab center is different in that you have to do physical therapy every day for an hour, and you have to do occupational therapy every day for an hour. So it's just like really intensive, like trying to get you to move and like plan for your future, I guess, instead of just like sitting in a bed like a vegetable at the hospital. My mom still came every single day and was with me for like 10 hours throughout the day. I was seeing progress like basically every day. I was getting up with like my leg braces and starting to walk around with like a walker, and then I graduated to forearm crutches, which is what I still use. I started getting the sense that I felt really trapped. Like it didn't really hit me until the second week in the hospital that like something really horrible had happened to me. Like I was coming out of shock, I guess. The severity of the situation just like dawned on me one day after like a week, and I just started crying, and I was like, oh my god, my fucking life. When I was in the rehab center, I just started feeling like really trapped. Like I was in a prison that I couldn't get out of. Like I missed my home, I missed my bed, I just missed like everything outside of the hospital. It was not becoming a nice place for me to stay in, especially when I was alone. There was just like nothing for me to do. I was just trapped with my thoughts, and my body was still like not cooperating. After like I think 2 weeks in the hospital, I still hadn't taken a shit. And this is like a really embarrassing story. I went for this scan of like my bowels, I guess, and they were just like, yeah, you're full of shit. And I'm like, God damn it. And they're like, we're gonna have to give you a really powerful laxative. I was like, yeah. They ordered this laxative for me. It's called magnesium citrate. You're supposed to drink like a whole bottle and it tastes so delicious. They told me that it tastes bad and that some people or most people say it tastes bad, but to me it tasted like really, really sour like Sprite. Like imagine Warheads or like lemonade, just like really sour, lemony, fizzy. When my friend was leaving that night, I poured like half of it into a cup and he knocked it over and I was like, "Oh my God," because they have to order it for you. And I they told me to just drink half of it and they'd like order more. But if you drink half of it, it doesn't like do the desired effect. So I had to take it for 2 more days because the next day I got it and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna chug this. Like it's so delicious." So I chug it and then like 10 minutes later I just throw up. I'm like, "Oh, what? This is too much liquid." So I throw up and they're like, "Go, you have to do it again." And I'm like, "God damn it." The next day I get the bottle and I'm like, "Alright, today's the day. Like we're gonna take it slow, we're gonna watch some Breaking Bad and we're gonna get it done." So I'm just like, lemony Sprite, fucking delicious fizzy shit. And I drink it. Then I get my friend to take me for a walk, which was the worst idea. Such a bad idea, but I was bored and you had to wait like a few hours. And I was like, we can go for a walk, it'll be fine. So he just like pushed me around and all the bumps were just like loosening everything. And I'm like, oh my God, we gotta get back. We gotta get back now. I was just feeling like I had to take a shit. Eventually we get back and we're sitting in my room and I'm like telling him that like I need to shit and he's just like standing there and I'm like trying to say like you gotta go, dude, like I'm gonna shit. But he was just like, "Oh, just wait for the nurse." And I'm like, "You gotta go, you gotta get out of here, like now." And as soon as he leaves, I like transfer to my bed and I just fucking explosively shit over like everything in the room. It was so horrible. I shit on my wheelchair, like all over it. I kept shitting on every nurse that like came in to help me. I felt so bad. I felt so bad. So the immediate like impact was just like devastating to them because they came in, they're like wiping me up. It took like half an hour to like clean the mess I just made, but then it just started coming and coming and coming, and it started hurting so bad. It felt like the worst like period cramps slash like gas cramps that you could have. I was crying from how much it fucking hurt. I was just laying in bed like, "Oh," and my roommate was just like telling the nurse like, "I don't think she's okay. Like she sounds like really like she's in a lot of pain." And it just kept coming for like the next 12 hours, I'd say. It stopped at like 2 or 3 a.m. and I was just like, "Oh, it's finally over. I finally took a shit." Another horrible thing that I remember happening in the rehab center was every morning they would come and they'd wake you up at 8 a.m. They'd take your blood pressure, they'd check your temperature, and they would like take blood tests if you needed them. They took my blood like at least once a week, maybe more than that. One morning I wake up and they're like, you have to get, I don't know what the test was called, but they have to put an IV in you so that once you go into this machine, they pump like I think dye into your veins. And there was a nurse trying to like IV me, and she just couldn't get it for some reason. Like I have had problems getting IVs in the past, but it's usually like 2 times they get it. And the nurse tries to get it the first time, and I'm like, "Nyeh." Um, I don't know if you guys know what an IV looks like, but it's like I think this long of a needle, and then there's a tube like inside, but the needle's like this big, and has to dig all the way into a vein. She tries again, and she misses, and then she tries another time and she misses, and I'm getting like really frustrated at this point because it's just starting to really hurt. I just feel the digging under my skin, and she's like, I'm so sorry, and she calls another nurse in, and the other nurse tries to get it, and I start crying because it's just so painful and so frustrating. I think after the fifth or sixth time they finally got it, but I just remember that day as like such a bad day. The nurse felt so bad. She brought me a piece of cheesecake after lunch. And then I felt really bad for making her feel bad. After a month, I was able to go on like weekend and overnight passes to my house to just like try out what living would be like. And after that, I just got discharged from the rehab center, and then I started going a few times a week to go to physio. That's all I can really remember right now. I'm sure I left out like a lot of details, but like I guess if they're interesting, I'll write them down and make another video about it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're interested in hearing more about my like medical experiences, or if you have something you want me to talk about, please leave me a message or a comment, and I'll see you later.